I reconnected with my high school sweetheart after my divorce. Did we make a huge mistake, reopening old wounds? I recently reconnected with my high school girlfriend. We were together for nearly all 4 years, practically inseparable. We broke up right before college because we had planned to go to different schools, and we thought it would be too difficult to maintain a long-distance relationship. It was amicable, a mutual decision made with tears and promises to stay in touch. We didn't. Life happened. We went our separate ways, focused on our studies, and eventually built careers and relationships. I sometimes wondered what happened to her over the years. I thought about her whenever I drove past places we used to go together. The old movie theater, the park where we had our first kiss, things like that. I never actively searched for her. I figured she was probably married with kids and living a completely different life. Bringing up the past seemed pointless. I learned not to dwell on things. I focused on my work and tried to build a stable life for myself after the divorce. It was hard to move on. I did not expect to see her again. We continued messaging each other for a couple of weeks. We talked about our jobs, our families, and our hobbies. I learned she is a cat person, and I told her I prefer dogs. We found we still had a lot in common. We laughed at the same jokes and shared similar values. I discovered the spark was still there, at least for me. I suggested we meet up for coffee. She agreed. We picked a weekend and a town halfway between us. I felt nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. I had no idea what to expect. Then, a few months ago, I saw her name pop up as a suggested friend on social media. I hesitated for a few days before sending a request. I wondered if she was married, if she would even remember me fondly. To my surprise, she accepted almost immediately. We exchanged a few messages, catching up on the basics. She is working as a nurse, still single. I am a software engineer, divorced for 2 years. We live in different states, but not too far apart, only a few hours drive. After a couple of weeks of online chatting, we decided to meet for coffee. The anticipation was intense. I felt like a teenager again, nervous and excited. I chose a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our cities. I arrived early, wanting to secure a good table. I watched the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I spotted someone who resembled her pictures. My pictures are also old, so I figured it was her. I saw her looking around, a little lost. I waved, hoping she would see me. She did a double take, and her eyes widened slightly. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. That made me relax a little. I was glad she seemed happy to see me. This whole situation felt weird but good. We sat down at the table. There was a short silence as we looked at each other. It was like we were both trying to reconcile the online person with the real person. I decided to break the ice by commenting on her hair. I told her I liked the new style. She thanked me and said she had been wanting a change. We then ordered our coffees and started talking about the traffic. Small talk felt necessary to get things moving. The conversation slowly drifted to more personal things as we became more comfortable. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She had changed, of course, but she was still beautiful. Her hair was shorter, styled in a way that framed her face differently. She wore a simple dress and carried a large purse. I stood up as she approached, and we hugged awkwardly. The first few minutes were filled with small talk. We commented on how long it had been, how different things were now. We talked about our jobs, our families, and our hobbies. It felt like we were trying to find common ground, to bridge the gap of 15 years. As we settled in, the conversation flowed more easily. We reminisced about high school, about the silly things we used to do, the friends we shared, the teachers we loved and hated. We laughed a lot. It was comforting to revisit those memories, to remember a time when life seemed simpler. The nostalgia was thick in the air. We spoke of old crushes, school dances, and football games. We recalled inside jokes and shared memories that only we could understand. It was a welcome escape from the present, a chance to relive a time when responsibilities were fewer and worries were lighter. The years melted away, and for a brief moment, we were teenagers again, laughing and joking without a care in the world. As the evening progressed, the conversation turned more serious. We discussed the pressures of adulthood, the weight of expectations. She confessed her anxieties about her career, her fears of stagnation. I confided in her about my financial struggles, my doubts about the future. It was a relief to share these burdens, to know that I was not alone in my struggles. We offered each other encouragement, reminding each other of our strengths and resilience. We also talked about the difficult things, the challenges we had faced, the heartbreaks we had endured. She shared stories about her demanding job, the emotional toll it took on her. I talked about my failed marriage, the pain of separation, the struggle to rebuild my life. We listened to each other with empathy, offering words of support and understanding. The coffee date lasted for hours. We lost track of time, completely engrossed in our conversation. As the coffee shop began to empty, we realized it was time to leave. We walked to our cars, both feeling a mix of emotions. There was definitely a connection, an undeniable spark. But there was also a sense of uncertainty, a question of where we went from here. The drive home was filled with thoughts about her. I replayed our conversation in my head, analyzing every word and gesture. I wondered if she felt the same way I did. I told myself not to get ahead of myself, to take things slow. It was just one date, after all. But I could not deny the excitement I felt. I had not connected with someone like that in a long time. I hoped this could turn into something real. I waited anxiously for her to text me when she got home. A message appeared on my phone a little while later. She said she had a great time and would like to do it again sometime. I replied quickly, telling her I felt the same way. We made plans to talk later that week. I felt relieved. I think we both wanted to see where this could go. We decided to keep in touch, to continue chatting online and maybe meet again sometime. Over the next few weeks, we did just that. We messaged each other every day, sharing details about our lives, our thoughts, and our feelings. I found myself looking forward to her messages, eager to hear about her day. She seemed equally interested in mine. We planned a second meeting, this time for dinner. I drove to her city, wanting to make it special. I made reservations at a nice restaurant, one with a cozy atmosphere and good food. She met me there, looking even more beautiful than I remembered. We had a wonderful evening. The conversation was even more open and honest than before. We talked about our hopes for the future, our dreams and aspirations. I felt a deep connection with her, a sense of understanding and acceptance. I wanted to make a good impression, so I talked about my work and my family. She seemed genuinely interested. She shared stories about her childhood and her career goals. I found myself laughing a lot, something I had not done much of lately. The restaurant was busy, but we managed to find a quiet corner where we could talk without shouting. I noticed other couples on dates, but I was completely focused on her. I did not want the evening to end. I paid the bill, and we stepped outside. I did not want to say goodnight. I asked her if she wanted to walk for a bit. She agreed. I suggested the riverfront because I knew it was nearby. I was nervous, hoping she felt the same way I did. I wondered if I should try to hold her hand. I wasn't sure if it was too soon. As we walked, I noticed the lights reflecting on the water. It was peaceful and quiet. I took a chance and gently reached for her hand. She squeezed mine back. After dinner, we walked along the riverfront, enjoying the cool evening air. We held hands, tentatively at first, then more confidently. It felt natural, comfortable. We stopped to look at the stars, and I told her about a constellation my dad showed me when I was a kid. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt a surge of emotion. I realized that I was falling for her again. The next day, I drove home, replaying the evening in my head. I knew I wanted to pursue this relationship, to see where it could go. I called her that evening, and we talked for hours. I told her how I felt, how much I enjoyed spending time with her. She admitted that she felt the same way. We decided to give it a try, to see if we could make it work. I felt relieved when she said she wanted to try. It made the anxiety I had been carrying lift. I had been worried that I was more invested than she was, but I was wrong. We made plans for the upcoming weekend. I told her I would drive to her city. We decided to go to a concert that was happening there. I bought the tickets as soon as we hung up the phone. The next few days at work felt long. I kept thinking about seeing her again. I tried to focus on my tasks, but my mind kept drifting back to her. I was excited about the possibilities. The drive to her city that weekend felt quick. I listened to music and thought about our last conversation. When I arrived, she greeted me with a hug. We went to dinner before the concert. I learned more about her friends and her job. The concert was good. We danced and sang along to the songs. After the concert, we went back to her apartment and talked some more. I felt comfortable and happy being with her. I felt like I could be myself around her. We started dating, driving back and forth between our cities every weekend. It was challenging, but we were both committed to making it work. We talked about everything, about our fears and insecurities, about our expectations and desires. We were honest with each other, open and vulnerable. However, as time went on, I began to notice subtle differences between us. Our lifestyles were different, our priorities were different, and our values were different. She was deeply involved in her church and spent a lot of time volunteering. I was more focused on my career and my hobbies. She wanted a simple life, a quiet home, and a close-knit community. I craved adventure, travel, and new experiences. I didn't think these things would matter much initially. I figured we could navigate our differences. I believed our history and affection for each other would be enough. I was wrong about that. I started feeling a sense of disconnect. It was a slow burn, almost imperceptible at first. I noticed I was making excuses to avoid certain events with her. She probably noticed the same. I began spending more time with friends who shared my interests. She devoted more time to her church activities. We were unintentionally drifting. We weren't communicating as openly as before. The distance between us grew. I felt guilty about it. I knew she felt it too. We talked about how we were feeling. These conversations never resolved anything. We tried to find activities we both enjoyed. These felt forced and unnatural. The things that once brought us together now felt like obligations. I started questioning whether we were truly compatible. She must have been questioning the same thing. It was becoming clear that our paths were diverging. We tried to compromise, to find common ground, but it was difficult. We argued more frequently, about small things at first, then about bigger issues. I realized that we had grown apart, that we were no longer the same people we had been in high school. We had both changed, evolved in different directions. One evening, we had a particularly difficult conversation. We were discussing our future, and it became clear that we had very different visions. She wanted to settle down, to buy a house, and to start a family. I was not ready for that. I was still recovering from my divorce, still figuring out who I was and what I wanted. I tried to explain this to her. I told her that I felt trapped, that I needed more time. I acknowledged her desires. I knew she wanted stability and commitment. I just could not give her those things at that point in my life. I felt guilty because I knew I was hurting her. It was not my intention. I did want her to be happy, even if that meant not being with me. We argued, of course. The conversation went back and forth. We repeated ourselves many times. I do not think either of us heard what the other was actually saying. Eventually, we exhausted ourselves. The next day, I thought about our conversation. I thought about how unhappy we both seemed. I considered the fact that we were arguing more than we were laughing. I noticed that we were both making compromises that we resented. I recognized that we were clinging to an image of what we once had. I knew that we were not the same people anymore. I came to a difficult conclusion. This was not working. I realized that forcing this relationship will make things worse. We were trying to recreate something that no longer existed, something that was based on nostalgia and shared history, rather than on present compatibility. I suggested that we take a break, to give ourselves time to think, to reflect on what we really wanted. I realized that forcing this relationship will make things worse. We were trying to recreate something that no longer existed, something that was based on nostalgia and shared history, rather than on present compatibility. I suggested that we take a break, to give ourselves time to think, to reflect on what we really wanted. She agreed. We ended things amicably, with sadness and understanding. We acknowledged that we cared about each other deeply, but that we were not meant to be together. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right one. It has been a few months since we broke up. I still think about her sometimes, about the good times we shared, about the memories we created. I do not regret reconnecting with her. It was a valuable experience, one that taught me a lot about myself and about relationships. I learned that sometimes, the past is best left in the past, that people change, and that what worked in high school may not work in adulthood. I also learned that it is okay to let go, to move on, to accept that some things are not meant to be. I am grateful for the time I spent with her. She helped me heal from my divorce, to open my heart again, and to believe in love. I will always cherish the memories we shared, the laughter we enjoyed, and the connection we felt. But I also know that it is time for me to move forward, to find someone who shares my values, my goals, and my vision for the future. I am still single, but I am not lonely. I am focused on my career, my hobbies, and my friends. I am open to new experiences, to new possibilities. I am hopeful that one day, I will find someone who is right for me, someone who will love me for who I am, not for who I used to be. The bittersweet feeling lingers. I will always remember her fondly, but I know that we are better off as friends, as people who shared a special moment in time, but who are now on different paths. Maybe someday, years from now, we will reconnect again, and we will laugh about this whole experience. But for now, I am content with the memories, with the knowledge that we gave it a try, and that we both learned something valuable along the way. And that's okay.